Good morning, Coach. Hope all is well.
Jonas, good morning. Hope you have been sleeping well. Know that
I've been sleeping.
baby's running the house now. I can tell you that now. So hopefully, I know I've been through that twice. So good to have you back, and hope that wife and baby doing well.
They are doing well. I appreciate you saying that. I want to ask you a question. Coach Capel was on earlier, and he said when he facing you guys, they'll be facing a desperate team. I mean, I don't want to speak on his behalf. I don't think he meant it in a bad way, but when teams are desperate, how can a desperate team be a dangerous team this late in the season when things haven't really been going their way?
I think every team in this league is desperate now because number one, you're trying to figure out if you can obviously get into the NCAA tournament. You're trying to figure out how well your team can play from one game to the other. In our case, I'm looking for us just to play better. Let's start off with that part of it. And really, for me, it's more about ball security, as we talked about, obviously after the Duke game. Our desperation for me is just obviously to see some of our younger guys start to play a little bit better basketball as far as taking care of the basketball. But I think this time of year, Jonas, we're talking about the February the 15th. I think everybody is in some type of desperation. If you're in contention for the NCAA, you're trying to fight for what seeds you can get. In our league, unfortunately, the talking heads don't have a bunch of us going to the tournament. So we're all fighting to obviously get to the tournament and, obviously finish out the season strong. So, but that's what, I'm sure Jeff meant that in that way. But for me, we just I want to see some improvement in some of our guys.
Jeff Hathorn, go ahead.
Hey, Kevin, I'm just wondering your impression of the season Justin Champagnie has had and how big of a challenge it will be Wednesday afternoon.
Wow, he's playing at a high level. And that says a lot about, what Jeff's done with his program, but it says a lot about, the kids that are in our league. When we do retain some of these guys who are, who don't turn to the pros, right away, you can see how good the players that we have in the league. And, he's been one of the bright spots. He's a tough matchup. He can score the ball inside and out. It's unbelievable how he's rebounding the basketball. I don't care who you are. If you've had a game where you've got 20 rebounds, you're pretty good. And so tough matchup for us because obviously, it's hard. How do you play him? Do you switch screens like we typically like to do 1 through 4? And then obviously Chance having a smaller guy over him where he can shoot the basketball over him. But he's become a 3-level scorer. He's scoring, around the basket. He's getting out in transition. He's getting to the free throw line. And he's also been deadly behind the three-point line. And so as tough of a matchup, the two guys I think are really a tough matchup problem for us as we just played against one. And Matthew hurt. And I think Champagnie is, similar in that way.
Michelle Kaufman, go ahead.
Hey, thanks for taking the time. I'm just wondering if, do you have any theory as to why the traditional powerhouse teams around the country, a lot of them are struggling this season? There's people who say it's because of the lack of home court advantage with some of those teams, or is it that they have so many young players? You just mentioned how important it is to have the older players. Do you think it's partly because those teams seem to have younger players in bigger roles? Do you have any theory as to why so many teams are struggling this year?
Well, when you say, Michelle, so many teams are struggling, that means somebody's playing well also. And so I don't want to slight the teams who are playing very good basketball. But I think when you look at the entire season, a lot of teams and coaches are, typically in some type of rhythm. And I don't know that anybody's really in a comfortable rhythm as we would normally expect. You look at it, they're unusual or they're stoppage in play, whether it be you because of the virus, whether it be the team you're playing against. I think the non-conference, I think everybody took the non-conference for granted, meaning, some of those guys need to get into a groove. Coaches find out rotations a little bit early in the year. And I know it's weird because it's February, and I think people are still trying to search for, a great rotation at times. And then when you add the fact that the younger guys don't have the opportunity to play as much in the non-conference, and then Michelle, we don't even talk about some of us didn't get a chance to have our guys for summer school the entire time. I know the season got backed up a little bit, so I think it's a combination of a lot of things. Typically, and it's probably one or two offs here, but when you look around college basketball, the teams who are playing really good probably are the older teams. Because they didn't have to adjust. They're older. Some of those guys may have needed rest from the summer or non-conference, and they're starting to play. But if you're playing one or two freshmen in your rotation, it's typically your team typically has struggled at some point, and maybe some teams have figured it out, but most haven't.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Justin Williams, go ahead.
Hey, good morning, Coach. I've got a couple for you. The first question I have, do you have any updates on Braxton Beverly? How's he doing?
You know what? He's been getting treatment all morning. We're going to practice here at about 2:30, and so I'll have a better update. He's banged up, Justin, as you know. That guy's been through a lot over the last 3 or 4 years. Not so much as his back as I thought it was. I think it's more of a hip deal now. And we're just trying to get him back aligned and, obviously see how he can go. He may be a guy from this point on that may get one day of practice before the game, and some days he may not even practice before the game. I have to determine with him if I'm going to be able to get more out of him in the game or practice, and I'm not sure I can get both right now.
And my second one, the obvious theme of the past two post-game availabilities that you've had has just been turnovers. They've killed you in the last 2 games. But my question is, what do you do in practice to remedy that? I mean, obviously these are mistakes on the court and you can only control but so much, but how do you train them to not turn the ball over?
Well, Justin, you probably sit into every staff meeting that I had. I don't know if you got us bugged or not. But it's weird because it's not like, we talked after the game with the coaches and it says, hey, are we over dribbling? No. We're turning it over in several different ways. We just have to continue to stress to those guys the importance of taking care of the basketball. Some of this is timing because, I didn't, when you look at Braxton Beverly and both Cam Hayes, who both turned the ball over against Duke, neither one of those guys practiced the day before because they both were dealing with a stomach bug. And some of that, obviously it has to do with just getting out on the floor and making plays. But, we're just going to, we're going to continue to play the way we play. We're going to try to cut down on our turnovers. In basketball, you're going to have travels, you're going to have charges, you're going to have different stuff. The ones that I don't like is the ones that you can't defend against. And so when you look at that, we've given up, close to 20-some points in the 2 games because of turnovers. That's what the biggest issue is. And how I play. You guys have covered us, and we like to be the one that's turning people over, not the one who's getting turned over. So we got to figure that out. And we'll keep working with our guys and obviously, talk about the importance of ball security and everything else.
Thank you, Coach.
Thank you.
We've got time for one more question, and it'll go to Steve Weissman. Go ahead, Steve.
Hey, Kevin. Good morning. I want to talk to you about Saturday's game a little bit. The Duke folks were real happy the way they played defense against you guys as compared to the 2 games previously, give up 90 points. What did you see they did so much better after what you'd see them do in the previous games?
I thought Matthew Hurt was unbelievable. I mean, and that's not obviously to take away from Duke's defense. I thought they were very effective. They've changed a little bit. When you insert Mark Williams into the game, it gives them a guy, and especially in our game, I thought he affected the game when you look at the fact that I think he had 5 blocks. But I think as much as that helped him on the defensive end, it also helps him so much on the offensive end because it allows Hurt to play more on the perimeter and make shots and everything else. Every coach, when you go into a game trying to emphasize something and it appears like it works, then obviously you hop on it. But I think it was more, in my opinion, what they did offensively than defensively. I'm certainly not saying that they wasn't better, because we didn't score, as many points as we normally would. But at the end of the day, I thought their offense was really good. I thought they were clicking on both ends, moving the basketball. And, what happens is when you get behind in a game, we turned the ball over 13 times in the first half. And so now you're fighting uphill the whole time, and that defense becomes even better just because of the fact that, we're going to take some tough challenge shots trying to get back into the game. But no, they were better than us in the game that we just played. And certainly, Coach K, obviously he knows his team and he knows if they're playing better on one end of the floor than the other. But, I give him credit for that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Kevin, thanks for the time this morning. We'll see you next week.
Thanks, guys.